Traveling with a companion ensures safety, emotional support, and teamwork. They help handle emergencies, deter threats, and lighten tasks like navigation. Sharing experiences strengthens bonds and creates lasting memories. In unfamiliar or remote places, they provide reassurance and help avoid loneliness, making the journey safer, more enjoyable, and enriching. This story takes place in 2020, a memory that still lingers in my mind, refusing to fade. That day, I went fishing at a secluded lake, one that most would consider off the beaten path. The lake, though known to many anglers, was rarely visited. Its eerie and unsettling atmosphere was enough to keep most away. It was, after all, the kind of place that was better left alone after dusk. For me, this was only the second time I had fished there, but strangely, on that day, the thought of its ominous reputation didn't even cross my mind. The moment the desire to fish hit, it felt like the lake itself was calling to me. Without giving it much thought, I gathered my gear and set off. Before I left, I made sure to inform my parents of where I was heading. I packed my phone too, just in case something unexpected happened. This place, known among the local fishing community as the Odd Lake. The name alone was enough to stir tales of strange occurrences and eerie happenings. But to me, at that particular moment, they were just stories, nothing more. Energized and eager, I hopped on my bike, excited to get there and begin my fishing trip. Upon my arrival, the place was enveloped in an expectant hush, profoundly still. For the first hour, there was no trace of life, neither above the water nor beneath its surface. I unpacked my gear meticulously, placing my canvas stool, bait, and sandwich neatly on my foldable table. Then, as I settled in, I cast my fishing line and began to fish. The inactivity of the lake gradually weighed on me, making my eyelids grow heavy. The more I gazed at the gentle ripples across the water's surface, the more languid I became. Eventually, I drifted into a deep slumber at the water's edge, serenaded by the soft rustle of the cool breeze against my skin. I woke suddenly to the violent tug of my fishing rod. Reflexively, I grabbed it, and thus began the fierce battle between me and the fish. This has to be a big one, I thought, exhilarated by the weight pulling at the line. With every ounce of energy, I fought to reel it in, careful not to snap the rod. My Abu Garcia was bending like an N under the strain, but it held firm. Thank God for the rod's quality. If it had been anything less, I'm sure it would have snapped. The struggle with that fish was one I would never forget. After nearly 30 minutes of tension, I finally brought it in. The size was incredible, almost as thick as my arm. A grin spread across my face, a moment of triumph as I allowed myself a brief rest before casting my line once more. But as I continued fishing, a strange feeling began to creep over me. The day seemed unnaturally long. Despite what should have been hours spent at the lake, the sun remained high in the sky, and the time on my watch read only 3 p.m. It felt wrong, unnerving even, but I pushed the thoughts aside, determined to focus on my fishing. Then the silence was broken. Voices echoed across the lake, calling out loudly in search of someone. I looked up and saw a small group moving in the distance, their movements hurried as if they were looking for something or someone. I set my rod down and tried to make sense of what was happening, but as the voices grew louder, my sense of peace shattered. This was no longer the tranquil experience I had imagined. After a few minutes, I couldn't take it anymore. I stood up and decided to approach them, hoping they would quiet down. But when I got closer, something unnerving happened. Though I was now only a few meters away, none of them seemed to notice me. I called out to them, but not one of them reacted. They continued shouting the same name over and over again, as though I didn't even exist. A shiver ran down my spine. And then I realized the unthinkable. The name they were calling was mine. I stood frozen, trying to process what was happening. I could see them clearly, hear their frantic calls, yet no matter how hard I tried to step closer, it was as if an invisible barrier held me in place. My body felt heavy, like I was being held back by some unseen force. I raised my hand, trying to wave to them, but they didn't respond. Their eyes darted around, searching in confusion, but never once did they look in my direction. What's even more astonishing is that they were searching with flashlights. I was utterly baffled, wondering why they would need flashlights when the day was still bright and full of sunlight. Fear started to creep in. What was happening? Why couldn't they see or hear me? I tried to scream, to yell out their names, but my voice seemed to vanish into the wind as if swallowed by the lake itself. My heart raced, my body trembling, but nothing I did could break the silence between us. Looking at the search team made me confused, and then suddenly, everything went dark. When I woke, something felt profoundly off, like the world had shifted in my absence. Faces loomed above me, familiar yet strange in the dim light. My family, along with a handful of rescue workers, surrounded me, their voices a mixture of hushed relief and lingering shock. It took me a moment to realize the glaring lights were from flashlights pointed at my face. It was night, but how could that be? Just moments ago, it had been daylight. I could still remember the vivid scene, the sunlight, their faces clearly visible. I tried to move, to speak, to make sense of the situation. But my body betrayed me. Weak and unresponsive, I could only catch fragments of their urgent whispers. 2 nights? You've been gone for 2 nights. The words echoed in my mind, unraveling everything I thought I knew. 2 nights? It felt impossible, yet their expressions left no room for doubt. How could that be? I remembered only a few hours spent fishing, battling the fish and the strange voices. Time had stretched in ways I couldn't comprehend. I tried to speak, to tell them what had happened, but my mouth refused to cooperate. My body was drained, yes, but it was more than that. I wasn't sure anymore what had been real and what was a dream. The lake, the voices, the feeling of being trapped. Everything felt like a nightmare, only far too vivid. That night, as I lay in bed, still shaken, one thought gnawed at me. When I had passed out by the lake, before the darkness took over, I had heard one final whisper in my ear. A voice, cold and deliberate. Next time you come, they will never find you. This story emphasizes how unpredictable situations can arise. It highlights the importance of having someone aware of your whereabouts, ensuring help is readily available in emergencies. Furthermore, it reminds us of how time or events can sometimes unfold unexpectedly, urging us to be cautious and prepared when venturing alone or into unfamiliar settings. Most importantly, it underscores the emotional and practical support companions provide in times of need.